87, South Carolina 71. Jeff, your biggest takeaway from this one for Indiana?
Well, I know. I'm going to tell you exactly what he's
Go
going to
ahead.
say.
What are you going to say?
They made threes.
Yeah, they can shoot. Indiana can shoot. They were, I think, 8 for 17 from three. Miles Rice made some shots. Cannon Carlisle made some shots. We know Renew can make a three here or there. Mbako is shooting threes. Like Mike Woodson, you have finally, I think, done it. Now, I want to see it more than a one-off here, but I do think this team collectively is much better than they were a year ago, and they made shots from the line as well. You know, I don't think South Carolina is great, but it's a good win. It's absolutely a good win for this Indiana team because of how they were able to get it. What?
We have 3 cameras up there, and you didn't look in the right camera a single time.
I'm looking at this one.
Our producer, and I wish we had – this is when we needed the producer, Cam Dagan, because our producer, Dagan Hughes, was back there saying, this camera, and Jeff is just sitting there staring into the
light is
camera.
blinding.
I'm glad you pointed it out. It's only my second day on the job, so I was not going to say anything, but I'm glad you said something.
That was pretty funny. On Indiana, look, the talent level is there without question. I made the argument before the season started that this is the most talented team in the Big Ten, right? Yeah. If you were going to give me the choice between 2 rosters, Indiana or Purdue, give me the Indiana roster. I don't think there's a roster, and maybe Illinois has an argument, right? But I think Illinois is a little bit young and they're more built on potential. For this year, I don't think there's a roster I'd rather have than Indiana's roster. Now, the big question is, how does this translate once you get to competition that is a little bit better than South Carolina? It worked tonight. It worked because Miles Rice played like the Miles Rice we all wanted him to be. What happens when you don't get that Miles Rice? I don't think he's going to be a 23-4, 3 assists, 7 for 10 for the floor. He's not going to be that guy.
Here's the difference.
And here's
Trey Galloway coming off the bench now. Trey Galloway was playing 30 minutes a game a year ago. You know who else was playing a lot a year ago? Gabe Cupps. Find him in the box score.
I'm looking.
It
It must be a misprint.
Yes, because you can't.
Must be a typo.
So, yes, the roster, they're deeper. They're really good from like 1 to 8 this year. Listen, Umar Ballo doesn't even need to score.
So that was going to be my next question.
Right. Okay? Doesn't need to.
But that was going to be my next question. All right, Umar Ballo had 2 shots. Now he got to the line 9 times. Okay,
and he rebounds.
13 rebounds, 6 blocks. But is he going to be okay if this season his role is blocking shots and getting rebounds?
As long as he's getting his paycheck, his NIL, he'll be fine.
That's probably fair.
Colin Murray Boyles, look at what he did tonight. Nothing. He got in foul trouble early. He was completely ineffective. You know, again, I'm not sure this works against every team the way Indiana's going to play, right? Because they've struggled early against bye teams so far, bye games.
Yeah.
They've struggled.
Here's what I'll say. The game where they really struggled was against Eastern Illinois. It was a Sunday noon tip-off, right when I'm sure they probably would rather be watching an NFL game than playing a bye game. And it was the morning after the Indiana football team landed a
Who?
The Indiana football team landed a huge
the one
win.
going to the playoff?
I'm going to go ahead and guess that this team with all that NIL money probably maybe spend a little too much time celebrating that football victory. That's at least what it looked like. I'm just speculating.
Took 20 minutes to warm up. It's okay. They came out in the second half.
That's what happened to FAU tonight.
Yeah.
I do think that it also is worth noting that Mike Woodson played quite a bit of 4-out with Mackenzie Mbako at the 4 or Bryson Tucker at the 4, right? We probably got in this game 15 to 18 minutes of Ballo and Renew playing together, and there was a lot of minutes of them alternating. And to me, that's the key, right? I don't think that he has to go full 4 round 1. I think that you can make Ballo and Renew work together against
see what the matchup
teams.
is.
Yes, against the matchups. But his willingness to play more of Mbako at the 4. Like, at the end of the day, I think Mbako is, if you can convince Mackenzie Mbako to be a big forward, to be like an Alex Caravan, kind of play that role as the 4-man that spaces, he could be an All-American. I think the talent is there for him to be able to do that.
But the question is never offense with Mbako, and it's never going to be offense. It's defense.
And you know what happens if you have him play the 4?
Yeah,
he ain't guarding 6'5" wings.
Right.
He's guarding dudes like him.
I know. Like, to me, that's the thing is you put him at the 3, you're putting him in a position where really he's going to fail defensively. You put him at the 4, he's got a chance.
I don't think see, I think he's better on that end this year. Last year, you're 100%
Oh, he
correct.
was a
and
mess.
the first month of last season, it was like watching a tie.
I remember I was at that Army game.
It looked like a freshman that had not yet been coached up on how to defend on the perimeter. And it wasn't just like, okay, you have to stay in front of your man, and he got beat. Like, he was fine at that part. It was the rotations. It was knowing, all right, when the ball's over here, I have to get here to try to take the charge. Or I have to cut off this pass when the ball gets driven baseline. Or I have to make this rotation here. This is how I X out on the weak side of the floor if there's a ball screen. You know what I mean? Like, it was all the scheme stuff. And he started picking that up towards the end of the year. And I'm not saying that he's, like, great at it yet, but I think that he's made enough improvement where it's not.
Just be average. I
would not say that he is a liability on that end.
And if he's not, then they got a chance.
Yeah.
And if they make shots, they really have a chance.
And we can put a ball in it with this. You got a stud at the point guard spot, man. Like, Miles Rice is really, really, really. And we saw it at Washington State last year. He was a lot better at Washington State.
I just want to see it more.
Yes,
that's all. And we're not until they go to the Bahamas. That's when we're going to see it, because Indiana's non-conference schedule at home is atrocious. I mean, it's a joke. So really, and South Carolina's probably, let's face it, they're probably not going to do what they did last year again.
No,
they're not a tournament team, most likely. Now, maybe Lamont Paris will prove me wrong again. I'd be shocked. So the Bahamas is going to be very important for Indiana.
I think
to get a resume win going into conference play.
Just last thing on South Carolina real quick is I think there's some talent on that roster. I think the biggest roadblock for them is going to be they play in an SEC where you could have 11 teams make the tournament. And, like, how are you going to be able to stack up wins when you have that many good teams? And you're like, there's a real chance they could finish 500 this year overall.